Probably you've had a fever dream, but have you ever had an opium dream? You know who had? Samuel Taylor Coolridge. That's right. And he even went to wrote a poem about it. That poem is often anthologized, though I can't really tell you why. And we're here with that poem today. The poem in question being Kubla Khan. And it reads as such. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran, through caverns measureless to man, down a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright and sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree. And here were forests ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover, a savage place, as holy and enchanted as ever beneath a waning moon was haunted by woman wailing for her demon lover. And from this chasm, with ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momentarily was forced, amid whose swift, half-intermitted burst huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momentarily the sacred river. 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion, through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns measureless to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. And mid this tumult Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome of caves of ice. A damsel with the dulcimer in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora could I revive within me. Her symphony a song to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware. His flashing eyes, his floating hair weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honey dew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. Written in 1797, about an opium dream. This poem, like I said, is widely anthologized, and I don't know why, other than to sort of speculate that it is sort of a vestigial appreciation for the amounts of imagination work done here. So, genre fiction, fantasy genre, science fiction genre, horror genre as a genre really sort of started to pop up in the 1800s en masse. So even if you were widely read, it is probably improbable that prior to those, that basically mid 1800s, you would have read very much fantasy, very much science fiction. And those are really works more fantastical of the mind, right? More fantastical of the imagination, I should say, not the mind. I mean, a lot of the high imagination work that you're getting prior to that is religious writings, and religious writings are used to explain morality, used to explain the meaning of life, things like that. Or you're getting tales of witches and giants to explain things to children and why children shouldn't do certain things. I wouldn't classify either of those as, so they're closer to fantasy, right? By the sort of hallmarks of the fictions themselves. But it would be hard, I think, to nail anything here down to a morality. One thing that pops up time and again, curiously, measureless to a man. We have at least one measureless to a man. And I believe there's one more measure mentioned, mingled measure. This drives my interpretation of this poem in a specific direction, but it's not, well, it's not that one. It's not what you're thinking. It's not pissing contest kind of stuff. Though, look, if you get into the academia around this poem, a lot of the conversation is about a couple different topics. Sex and sustenance, so war, violence, pleasure, those sorts of things, those driving factors, right? Those are the big driving factors in life. But I think that the more interesting interpretation of this poem that is often given, though not the one I'm going to go with, but more more interesting than the sex and sustenance sort of explanation here, is the idea that this poem is an allegory for creativity. Creativity is precious. Creativity is to be protected. So Kubla Khan has built this empire, and he has this inkling of creativity. So he builds this sacred space for that creativity to be. It is the pleasure dome, as it were, but the pleasure dome need not be of carnal pleasure. I think the idea of creation is very easy to graft over the discussion that's had here. But I would like to take this discussion. So, because creativity is not easy, because creativity is fragile, the argument goes for this. It takes a strong civilization to harbor creativity, though I would argue that historically we do not see this. We see this sort of fractally. We see early humans doing cave paintings. They're still hunter-gatherers, they're still wanderers, they're still nomadic. But they have cave paintings, they have jewelry, things like this. But I think that it is obvious that once people are allowed to settle down, there are flourishings of creativity. And Kubla Khan has built himself an empire, and in that empire has carved out the pleasure dome for creativity. Now, pleasure, the carnal desires, sex and sustenance, the act of building a family, if you will, is creative as well. Not the same type of creative, but the interpretation that I would like to take for this poem is a little bit different. We see towards the end of the poem the speaker saying, "If only I could create this type of pleasure dome. I envy this thing so much." I think what this poem is really about is some type of creative jealousy. I've run several writers groups throughout my life, mostly in my 20s, and the greatest compliment that I could ever think to give someone about their work is that this makes me jealous, right? Someone hands in a story or a poem around the group, and I think, I wish I had written this. I am jealous of this. That type of emotion lives very deep within the brain, jealousy. The type of deep within the brain that it might take something like opium to coax out. Hypothetically. This, therefore, I believe that it is no coincidence that this poem comes to us from an opium-induced dream. Was there something in our writer's life that made him jealous? Jealous of another writer, jealous of a creative type. Maybe he wished he could sing. And in that opium dream, the idea of artistic jealousy was unlocked. And here we have Kubla Khan standing in for one of his artistic rivals. It's an interesting idea to me, at least. I had to think of something to talk about with this poem, and that's where I went. So that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.